Welcome back, guys, to Win Media SKN, and it's Island Tea time. And as Jade mentioned before we went to the break, we have a very, 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 and I'm going to say very two more times, very, very special guest in the studio with us this morning. Guys, we have Miss Marsha Henderson in the studio with us this morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
I am tired, but I'm not complaining at all. I'm doing good.
Well, what should I call it, Miss Henderson, Marsha?
Whatever you want to call me.
Hey.
Listen,
Hey,
you know
hey.
what you're talking to?
Hey, you know me?
Anything works as them, if I can call you as them.
But Marsha, it's a real pleasure, and of course we could definitely understand the tiredness.
Yes.
Because we were right in the heat of campaign mode now.
We are.
At the tail end, right, going to the home stretch, and
8 more days.
Eight more.
more
Imagine that,
days. Yes.
Imagine
Before
that.
next week,
Just like that.
Friday.
At one point it felt like it was never gonna come.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
But for those of you who are wondering why this matters, on Tuesday would have been nomination day. You were nominated to be the candidate for the Kitts-Nevis Labour Party in Constituency number 2.
That's correct, yes.
How are you feeling about that?
Oh, it's an awesome feeling. I am honored that the people of Central Bastia, have put their confidence in me, and I was nominated by 2 of our young female leaders, Kimmel Demin and Jamaica Woodley.
Okay.
Jamaica Woodley. And I, just like the other persons in Central Bastia who've placed their confidence in me, these 2 brave women stepped forward with me on Tuesday. They walked with me from the constituency office to the McKnight Community Center and, poised their confidence in me to be the next representative and the candidate for Central Bastia. It's a feeling for me to have taken on the mantle, from the persons who have gone before me, starting with our first national hero, Robert Bratcher, who, would have served as the representative of that area, as the recent representative Marcelo Liebert, and even Dwyer Astefan, who is assisting me in this campaign, and all the other persons who, would have worked before for the people of Central Bastia. The mantle has been passed to me, and I am absolutely honored to, to serve the people of Central Bastia.
Well, it sounds like you have some big shoes to fill.
I'm telling some big shoes, but I'm ready. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to serve.
But Marsha, I mean, I always ask this question when we have candidates come in, and it's about what was the process, what happened. Tell us the story behind you going from someone who may have been focused on family, may have been focused on your career, to know someone who, because of your jumping into the political spectrum, now have to focus on the needs and concerns of our entire community. What would have led you to saying, hey, I am going to enter the political ring?
Okay, so I've always been passionate about people, but I don't know if people think it's taboo or, when I say I had no political ambitions. I never saw myself before as a politician, but I've always been passionate about people. In fact, I've been an advocate for the past 18 years, championing the cause of women, young men, and even in the criminal courts. So my passion has always been service, be it in, in the private sector. And it wasn't until, when I got to, like most young people who are not really interested in the politics, it wasn't until I went to sixth form that it became apparent. And at that time, the Labour government was in power. And someone came to the college and was asking what we want to do. And I was like, I want to be a lawyer, and there was a particular minister at the time, he doesn't like me to call his name. He was very, very instrumental in ensuring that I, when I applied for economic costs, that it was ventilated at cabinet and I got through. He helped me apply for my room on board and even the application to the University of the West Indies. And I'm like, this man showing a lot of interest. And he never once made a move on me. It was genuine interest. And imagine he was a politician and he never even solicited my support. It was just out of care and concern. And it wasn't just me, it was a bunch of us in sixth form who he came and he was like, what you guys want to do? And he was ensuring that, you know, he showed some interest in what we wanted to do. When I went off to school and I came back, and it was clear and obvious to me that I benefited from progressive policies that at the time were in place by the Labour government. And then I came back and there was a call to serve. And I'm like, you know, I prayed about it. I thought long and hard. I spoke to my friends and family. And I decided after praying that I have to give back. I should give back. I have a moral obligation to give back. And what better place to give back than to Central Bastia, the same community that molded me and made me into who I am. And so I decided to answer the call. I am honored that the people have, as I said, put their confidence in me to serve as their representative in Parliament. And that is what led me here.
Well, now you're here. How has that journey been, especially since that, you know, when you started, you may have seen you having to do all this campaigning and all this stuff that you have to do now over a 5-year period. But then it was pushed to just, what, about 3 months?
3 months, because I've only been on the ground since April. So we transitioned from the previous candidate in April. We were thrown into a snap election. And so I've been on the ground since April. The elections are on August the 5th. So it's been tiring and exciting. So as tiring as it is, you know, nothing is more... when you go canvassing and you meet the people and they you know, they give their confidence and say, Marsha, you know, we are honored and excited about the fact that you are going to be our next representative. And when you hear the concerns as well, that it can be a little draining, you know, how our people in Central Bastia in particular have been neglected. And, you know, I'm honored that, like I said, they've asked me to do it and I've stepped up to the plate. And as tiring as it is, I am ready for it.
You're talking about exciting. I well know what you're talking about, you know. I saw you on the back of a motorbike there.
Listen, that picture been all
I know what she's talking about when she say exciting. I know that's really what she's talking about.
Yeah, that's one of the exciting parts as well, yes. But when you see the little girls, you know, who they run to you and they see you as a mentor, and when they run to me and they say, Marsha, we love you, you know. Mind you, it's not going to get to my head at all, but when you can be in a position to at least impact young people, you know.
Yeah. I think that you mentioned, you know, Central Bastia being, you know, the constituency that you're contesting the seat in. That constituency, you mentioned that there's a feeling of neglect.
Yes.
Amongst the people. That's what's been coming out of the conversations that you've been having. In what ways is that neglect most visible? And what are your intentions, if successful at the polls, to address the needs that would have come out of that neglect?
Okay, so in terms of visibility, no, we saw that this administration within the last 7 years would have built, I don't remember, it might have been around 60 houses or however many it is. None of them were allocated to any of the people of Central Bastia. And while we're canvassing, that is top on the list, whether it's lack of housing or lack of affordable housing. And the people of Central Bastia were not allocated any of the houses built. None were built for the people in Central Bastia. Similarly, a lot of the persons complain about the lack of employment. So a lot of our people in Central Bastia are not working. In fact, yesterday while I was on the canvas trail, one lady said to me, you know, Marsha, come November, one factory is going to be left at the industrial site, which is Jaro. Kajola is going to be closed down in November. We've seen the closing down of 3 of the factories within the last 7 years. And that is an indication, not only that, I mean, we were faced with the pandemic, But prior to that, people were just not working. A lot of our people, as I continue to say, are stuck on the social programs, and the social programs are like a safety net. The government is responsible nonetheless to find employment for the people, and the people of Central Basti are complaining about the lack of jobs, lack of infrastructure, and a number of other things. And in terms of what I intend to do when I go into office, the first thing, and they've complained as well about the cost of living. A lot of that comes out. And I don't know if you're aware that the first thing we said on our platform is that we intend to increase the minimum wage to $500. And that is disposable, so I suspect it's going to be that plus whatever deductions that would assist. And in terms of housing in Central Bastia, our party, well, not just in Central Bastia, but our party intends to, in the first 5 years, build 2,000 homes. And that has nothing to do with the allocation of land. That is just the building of homes. And the people in Central Bastia, I will make sure to advocate that our people in Central Bastia are a part of that and benefit from this policy.
But because sometimes, we have these responses to the needs of the people being put forward, and it becomes a bit cloudy as to how is that possible. I think when we start talking about housing, particularly in Central Bastia, that raises that question, because people keep saying, well, where the house is going to go?
Absolutely.
So is there any detail that you could?
But without going into too much detail, Central Bastia has been landlocked for a while. But the most recent, let's say, allocation of land for the people of Central Bastia and even building of homes would have been that development immediately in front of Ross University. 500 and something lots were given out by the Labour government. I think it would have been between 2010 and 2015. And so land was allocated, but not within the Central Bastia area. Okay. So the persons who live in that area were allocated land there, and even some in Duas. Duas housing development. So yes.
So what you're saying, we may be seeing the fact that the persons who may have traditionally grown up in Central Bastia be given priority in areas outside of Central.
Yes, and that has to happen, because there's nowhere to allocate land in Bastia, and so that's not an issue. We are not scarce of land in this country. And so the people of Central Bastia would be benefiting from the policy of land and home distribution.
Understood. But you are actually going to continue. I think you were talking about some of the other things that you intend to do for the people of Central, if successful at the polls.
Yes, I was touching on the issue of jobs and how we intend to create more opportunities for jobs, and lamenting on the fact that we have not had investors come here within the last 7 years, and those who were here actually packed up and left. And so I think the confidence in terms of what the investors have in this administration is lacking. And with a Labour government in office, investors would return. We would have job creations. We intend as well to introduce technical and vocational training. I think a lot of times we focus on the academics. A lot of our children and students are not necessarily inclined in that way. We are introducing, we're big on agriculture, and that as well would create more jobs. I know Samuel, I don't know if he's been here, but he has been, okay, and he is one of the biggest advocates for agriculture. That as well, and our plans for agriculture would create more jobs for our people.
Yeah, I think that it is no secret that employment is something that is very much necessary within for the people of the urban centers.
Yes.
Right, which is kind of interesting, because they're the ones who are closest to the commercial centers as well. Right?
Well, interestingly, as them, it seems as if that all of that is moving out of Central Bastia. You see a lot of it moving into the areas of Frigate Bay on the outskirts. So we are advocating, and we intend as well to do urban revitalization in the communities of Central Bastia, particularly the McKnight and the downtown area where businesses will return. Now, mind you, that is a long-term plan. It's not something that we can accomplish within the next 5 years. But we are mindful of the fact that Central Bastia, as you say, most, if you're looking for supermarkets, the only real ones you see in Central Bastia are the Chinese.
Yeah.
They've moved to Buckley's, Bird Rock, Frigate Bay.
Yeah,
Nightclubs, none in Central Bastia, maybe the Spanish, have little shops there and you can go at a bar. But Central Bastia needs to look like the heart of it is town.
Yeah.
It is, as you say, where all the commercial activity happens and you don't get that feeling. And so we do have plans, long-term, of course, to do the revitalization of Central Bastia. And that would help in that regard.
Well, I know well, most of the candidates don't seem to want to give out too much, but if you can give us a little detail about some of the plans that you guys will be implementing to fix this problem.
The urban revitalization?
Yes.
Well, it requires us dealing with a lot of the abandoned properties, one, and creating spaces where more businesses can operate. And even if persons, we create residential spaces, but we also need to create commercial spaces where you can have barbershops, supermarkets, nightlife, and that would be, of course, we would have to relocate the persons, whether we can't acquire the lands, we would have to buy out the lands because government can only acquire the lands if it's required for a public purpose, like the building of roads. So it would mean that we would have to buy out the lands and redevelop the area on a whole. And I know there's a plan that I can't speak about, particularly for the Bay Road. I have seen it, and one of our young persons have created something on it. Similarly, with the IT, there's an IT policy that some young persons have, people from 18 to 19 years old. I'm just saying this to say that we want everybody at the table. So the urban revitalization plan that I've seen and was created by a young person under 45. The IT policies that persons have reached out to us on as well, they're saying, we want to sit at the table, we're in Labour, we're in PAM, we understand we have to vote, but we want to make our contribution to this country as well. And these are young people who are asking for their seat at the table, who are asking, give them the opportunity to take up space. So back to the urban revitalization, there's a detailed plan. Of course, I can't go into too much of it.
All right, so I feel like there is a lot of talk around women in politics. It is something that we have seen the parties embrace.
Yes. How many women we have this time?
At least 5.
At least 5, yeah. In St. Kitts.
In St. Kitts and in Nevis, there's at least another 2.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So we have been seeing the parties embracing women candidates, female candidates. We have seen females being more active in the leadership.
Yes.
Because I don't know for a lot of people, but personally I believe that women have really been the backbones of all these parties all this time.
You are correct, Azim.
Like, that's what they see with the most passion, who have the ones who always go out, the one who's always there, organize any events.
Execute.
It's always been the women. Yes. But now seeing women move more and more into the space of candidates, I think it's welcome. Now, I'm not a woman, but just looking on.
You are?
Just looking. I am just looking on, would assume that there is some unique challenges to kind of, one, going into this traditionally male-dominated sphere, but also just having to deal with womanhood, parenthood, all those things, being in a field that is so involved.
Yes.
Right? How do you intend to manage?
Oh, you mean how am I managing?
How are you managing it now already?
Yes.
And is it something that you would encourage other women to pursue? Okay,
so that's a loaded question. But first, the the challenges that women face generally outside of politics, because I'm a professional in terms, I'm an attorney and I'm a mother. So there is a challenge even outside of politics for professional women or women on a whole. You don't need to be a professional, but there's a challenge where we have to learn to balance. And I think a lot of times the system isn't, a lot of times people don't want to be flexible. They expect you to show up. Let me say, like for politics, the men can show up. If there's a meeting, the men can show up. But women, we can't just show up, We want to get made up. And we don't always have to be made up, but we just don't put on a suit and come. We have to fix our hair, fix our face, and get ready. But and that's one of the things. The other thing is, I don't think women are taken seriously when we make our contributions. Just because we're women, we are not taken seriously. You'd be in a room with men, you'd be in a room with men, you make your contribution, and they brush it off. Sometimes because you're a woman, you have to assert yourself, whether it's professionally or in politics. You always have to be asserting yourself. I've gone into rooms, and one man even said, lawyer lady, we hear you. And I had to say, you don't do that. Don't do that. I came in here and I addressed you as Dr. So-and-so. You don't call me lawyer lady. You understand? And that's the temperament. It requires us, like I always say, to have a cultural shift in how we think and behave and see women. And so I find that a lot of times we have to be assertive, and we come across as being petty because we have to assert ourselves sometimes to get our points made, or for our points to be valued, our contribution to be valued. And when we assert ourselves, oh, that's a petty, and they're just. So that's one of the challenge. I don't have an issue with asserting myself at all. In fact, I'm very assertive, and so it's not an issue for me. But I don't think it should get to that point where women have to assert themselves to have their contribution valued in leadership. And the other thing is balance, the balance of, if you're a mother and your profession, whether it's politics or otherwise. So you have to balance family life and your career, politics, or for me being a lawyer, I have to show up every morning, take my son to school, get to court on time. I struggle with time, everybody will tell you, But to me, I think we need to learn to be flexible and adjust so that we can accommodate, women.
Right.
Yeah, because and the thing with that too is a lot of the times when you're assertive, they start to say, she is too masculine.
Yes.
She presents too, you lose your feminine touch, because they often think that women are supposed to be so dainty and quiet and in the background. But when they see strong women,
yes,
they just don't know how to deal with it.
At all.
So you talk about this need for cultural shift and the need for society to
think differently and behave differently,
right.
Yes.
In terms of policy that could help to shape that, is that something that you've thought about, something that you
absolutely
intend to do?
In our all spheres. So, for example, there is the consideration of paternity leave, the introduction of paternity
that's what
leave.
we're to say, yeah.
And of course, that is if it's going to assist, because you don't want fathers staying home for just staying home sake.
Of course.
But it's to create a balance. So the introduction of paternity leave, and maybe the changes in maternity leave.
That's necessary.
Yes,
yeah,
to assist women. And then we are also considering changes to policies, for example, in creating spaces, whether in private or in public, to accommodate women on the job. You can pick up your baby, for example, during lunch, and care for your baby there, spend time and bond with your child.
Right.
For now, you have to go back to work after 3 months.
Which is definitely not enough time.
Mind you, 3 months includes some time before the baby is even born.
Yeah.
So it's, I think it's sometime before and sometime after. So The 3 months includes that period. And so sometimes your baby is at the nursery early and the time to bond isn't there.
Sometimes
So
people
even
have to give up their vacation to try and extend it.
So
and,
working from home, I mean, with COVID, that has changed working from home, and some jobs don't, you can't work from home, for example. But, you know, there should be spaces in the public and private that women can bond, breastfeed, and even return the child back to the nursery if that permits, even if it means increasing lunch hours and you put back in the time, because what matters is if you put in the time,
Right.
not that you're on a strict 9 to 5. And then there are, and I don't like to say, maybe the introduction of quotas for women to fill spaces, whether on boards or, you know, in leadership positions, but that is being considered as well. So a number of policies to ensure that women, you know, get treated fairly. But those are just some of the policies. There are a number of things that we are considering. For example, on our platform, for single women, there is the policy of allocating 30% of the homes that we're going to give to single mothers.
Okay.
So all those things contemplate ways in which we can assist with women in our society.
Well, you mentioned COVID, and I know this has been a concern for a lot of people, and I don't think I remember any of the parties really talking about it, but I think it is important. We know over the last couple of years, because COVID has been here for way too long, that people have lost their jobs because of the fact that they may not have been able to get vaccinated for whatever reason, medical, personal beliefs, and all of these things. And these people are still out of a job.
Yes.
Or if there is any plans to help alleviate the stress of you not being able to work because of this decision that the world has been moving past anyway. So how is St. Kitts-Nevis, and in particular the Labour Party, going to be able to deal with the fact that there are still people unemployed because of COVID?
No. I think the reality is that we have our main source of income being tourism. And so when COVID came, a lot of the hotels, restaurants were locked down, and a lot of our people who worked in the hospitality industry were home. In 2004, if I can just say, we were at the juncture where we were closing down the sugar industry, 2004 or 5, when the Labour Party took the harsh decision and closed down the sugar industry. And people were petrified, like, oh, we're going dead. What are we going to live off of? You know, we live off of sugar. And we introduced tourism. We are at that stage again after COVID, where it is necessary for us to consider ways in which we can diversify our economy and not simply rely on tourism. COVID has taught us that, and this is the time where our young people, you know, are stepping up. So like I said, the introduction, our party is big on the digital economy, and that is going to create jobs and other means of, you know, revenue other than tourism. We're big on agriculture. We have solid plans for, you know, legalizing marijuana for commercial purposes, which would create jobs for our farmers, those who are going to package it, those who apply for the different licenses, you know, the export of it. So our party doesn't just intend to rely on tourism, and we're going to see how we can restructure tourism as well. The manufacturing industry, like I told you, Jara is going to be the only company that remains open at the industrial site unless others come in from November in this year. So we simply cannot rely on tourism alone, and COVID has taught us that. And our party has a lot of plans, like I told you, whether it's in agriculture, the digital economy, entertainment, and manufacturing, all the other areas, and in addition to tourism, of course, to create job opportunities to send our people back out to work.
Well, I think that's been a huge concern for a lot of people. How are we intending to diversify and make ourselves more resistant to things like the pandemic, to some of these global issues that are facing us? Because even after the pandemic, now we have wars happening that are causing us, you know,
not to have food and the other things that come here, which is why agriculture is big. And so we're at that stage again where we were in 2004-5 when we took the decision to close down sugar, which is all we knew at the time, and move into tourism. We're 20 years later, we're at that step again where we are forced to consider other ways and mechanisms to diversify the economy, to create jobs for our people, to make us more, food sustenance and all those things. We're there now. And I'm encouraging our young people to step up. It doesn't mean that you have to be a politician, but you can make your contributions, you know, in the policies we create in the next step in diversifying our economy. You can, like I said, make your contributions in IT, in agriculture. You come and you sit at the table with us, and we create the way forward.
Well, you see, it's all well and good to encourage the young people to come to the table, but a lot of the times the issue isn't that the young people don't want to do it, is that the spaces aren't created for them.
That is correct, Jade. You are so correct.
Yeah, the young people want to be there. They want to give their ideas. They want to contribute to society, but the older folks block them a lot of these times. They don't want to give up the spaces, the seats. They feel like they know because they've been there the longest. So when a young person comes with a fresh new idea, they put it down because they feel like we don't know enough.
Where you're going with that? You just come. But so, like I told you, the plan for urban revitalization in Central Bastia, that was done by one of our young people. We have an IT policy that we've been considering even before the announcement of the election. We've engaged our young people, and they have prepared an IT policy. So we are already including young persons. We intend as well to have the shadowing in the different ministries where young persons can sit under and they'll be shadowed by whether it's the director, the minister, whomever, so that, you know, once there's time to transition, there's a smooth transition, one. And secondly, they also get to contribute to the policies that affect them. So it's not just about transitioning, but making your contribution. So that is what we intend to do as a government, to ensure that young people, women, your voices are heard and you make your contribution.
Well, speaking of IT, I don't know what it is with the obsession in this country with paper.
Yeah.
But, for example, recently I went to the health center to get an injection, and the nurses had to ruffle through all types of papers
to find out when you got your vaccines when you were younger.
And I don't understand.
And you know what amazed me? When we were hit with COVID, our vaccination card was digital. So it shows that we can, and we have the mindsets. Because when I was traveling, I was able to get my vaccination card. You could have it a physical copy, or you can have a digital copy. Right. And so the Ministry of Health had moved to giving you your vaccinations card, your cards digitally. Why can't we do everything else that way? Why wasn't the steps taken to digitalize or you know,
e-government?
And that is in our manifesto. I mean, that is going to make business easier. You don't have to walk. And even at the court where I work, I mean, in Nevis, they've moved to you know, the digital recording of certificates of title, but you have to go back in books. Some of them, the pages out, some of them, you know, missing. And we're in 2022. Mm-hmm. And the young people we met with, they were like, Marsha, can you imagine a 4-year-old child knows how to code? Mm-hmm. But in schools here, we're teaching our young people
cursive.
Cursive. And I protested, and they're like, oh, it's a confusion. But for computer, we're teaching what is a mouse, what is a computer, what is software in grade 4. And 4-year-olds understands how to build a website, what is how to build software, and they can code. So, you know, we absolutely need to do better. Our young people, they have the competence, they're capable. We just need to create the avenues for them. And that is what our party is about. And I am hopeful. I am absolutely hopeful. But we are at that stage where we now need to make sure, you know, the focus is there, not just on how many cruise ships we can bring in and all of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we spoke earlier about how we, you know, are in this season, snap election season.
Yes.
In terms of politics and where we are now, what's your general feeling about the state of the country in terms, like, from a political stance?
I think we need to settle down. We need some stability. We have been in election mode for the past 7 years, and even more so within the last 2 years. And the country needs to settle down. We need to go on and focus on building our country. And I'm happy that the elections are going to be on the 5th of August. I anticipate that we're going to have a high voter turnout. Mind you, when we go out canvassing, a lot of persons are disenchanted with the politics on a whole. And some persons were like, I may sit it out this time. But this is a critical election, and I think a lot of persons more now understand that we can't sit it out. I think in the last election we had maybe a 57% turnout, and I think we're going to see a higher voter turnout. Persons are ready to have the country just, settle down and have some stability. So on election day is next Friday, and we are all going to go out to vote. I am hoping that once the votes are counted, we settle down and we move on to country building.
So you don't believe we're gonna have to end up in several court cases after this election? Because that seems to have been
the norm and the trend. Well, we are. I'm prepared. If there's the need to. Yeah. If there's the need to, but I'm hoping that we can focus, because you see, when we do those things, when that happens, we're always in election mode.
Yeah.
And there's no settling down, there's no rebuilding, and so we just need to go about our business on election day, and even before, fairly. We need to have fair elections, free and fair elections. The people need to go out and say what they want. And then we need to settle down and focus on nation building. Our people are suffering, as you said. A lot of people are not working. A lot of people want homes, they want jobs. People have their issues, and we can't forever be in political mode, election mode.
I literally told my friend just recently, because we was talking about election, and I told her it feels like we are never out of an election cycle.
Yeah.
Even after elections are called, the next 5 years is spent.
Do we recognize
campaigning.
That in Nevis we could end up with 3 elections in a year? Between now and December, we could have 3 elections in Nevis.
I'm sorry for them. I'm sorry for them, because I can't imagine.
I know. We really need to settle down. And the people should go out and cast their votes. And let's see what happens. Hopefully we don't, go back and forth. And the elections are free and fair, and there would be no need for that. But if that doesn't happen, I suspect,
I mean, even if that happens, I keep saying, I think my fear is that we end up in a situation where
we have to do this over again.
Yeah, and because there's not a clear majority by any one party, that we end up in a situation where
I don't agree with you, though. I think my party. I know. I'm just.
No, but I know you're looking for all it.
Oh, of course. So. But
you're looking for all it.
The people are going to go out and elect the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party.
Well, the candidates becoming younger and younger, because now we have a whole, well, not a whole new batch, but we have a batch of new politicians entering the arena.
Yeah.
Do you think that they could help to quell some of this tribalism, get St. Kitts-Nevis people away from the behaviors that they have displayed over the past election cycles, and even in this one? Because as much as we like to say we're getting to a new place where we don't do as much of the rah-rah and the fighting, I don't feel it. Like this election cycle has shown me that we are not there yet.
So it's definitely a step in the right direction, but we still have a way to go. I've seen a big difference. I don't see politicians as my enemies, even if they're my opponents. Natasha and I, we get along well. I even get along well with the other two persons who are running in Central Bastia. I mean, I see them and I tell them I'm going to bang them all the time.
Well, as you
I'm
should.
going to wash
As
them
you
out.
should.
But I don't see them as my enemy. And I see even young people, when you canvass, they're not interested in the tribal politics.
We keep saying that, but they're not listening to us.
I've been walking the grounds and we are selling our candidates, but young people are asking about the issues. I have been walking particularly with the two past representatives, and we've been selling on a national level the issues that they affect us, how they affect us nationally, outside of those in the constituency. And young people are eager. That is what they want to hear. They want to hear about the school being built on the aquifer. They want to hear about the building of the prison. They want to hear about the government contracting with a Swiss company to have the solar energy plant here. Those are the things that intrigue them. But when you start about, other politicians, they're blank out.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the issues, young people listen. And so for me, that is a step in the right direction. That's, it's no longer if you're a Labour, you're a PAM, if you're a PLP, whatever. What are the issues, how they affect us, and how you're going to help?
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think we're at a place where and that's why I think this particular election is critical for how we move forward politically as a nation.
Yes.
Right? Because we are in a situation where if we aren't careful, we could slide even further back into some of that tribal behavior, or we can really evolve as a people and see the parties, the candidates, the politics, the politicians, elections, all of this as just a part in nation building and nation development, as opposed to this competition of enemies and things that traditionally has been.
Because at the end of the day, everybody's supposed to have the common goal, which is the best for the country. So if we keep seeing, and I guess I just never understood the mentality of people who see it as my party against your party, my color against your color, because that's gang behavior.
Yeah.
That's the gang behavior that we've been trying to get away from.
It is a competition.
It's a competition.
So we have a contest.
Yeah.
So we have to sell ourselves, but not to the extent, that.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is the role that the parties play in our elections. I think partly is that, and we perpetuate some of this as well. Just trying, as we say, we're trying to sell ourselves and think the different parties. But if we recognize that the parties really are there to facilitate the fielding of the candidates that would then represent the areas, as opposed to being these overreaching organizations that somehow control everything. Like that's how it feels now. Like you say, you have the unity government or the PAM government, Labour government, and it's almost like this overreaching overlord that you somehow have to pay tribute to in order to get through. Like, if we don't change that, then...
But that's still kind of necessary, because each party has its own philosophy. And I think that is what we need to sell, as opposed to fight each other.
Right.
But each party has its own philosophy. And our philosophy is the empowerment of the masses. And that is what that is what we were built on, and that is what we advocate for, whether it's through home ownership, education, small business ownership, whatever it is, we are about empowerment of the masses. And so even though PAM would sell its story or PLP would sell its story, their philosophy may not resonate with me. You see, so it's still necessary for us to push our narrative, our story, but not to the extent, like I say, that, it becomes tribal.
Well, there's a question on the left that is very interesting, and it says, what would you say differentiates the Labour Party this time to be the best choice from the others?
Clearly, no. If we go back, the other two were in a coalition. That fell apart. And clearly, the policies that they are advocating, for example, the three that I mentioned, They are advocating for building a prison that is going to be built by a Chinese company, whilst our people are here out of work. That Chinese company, I'm told, is going to be making about $600 million off of the building of the prison. They're going to be able to sell our passports and make monies off of it. Now, if that money was spent here in our economy, it would have been here circulating to fix our hospitals, which has deteriorated drastically. It would have been there to build, create homes, jobs. That money is going back to China. Similarly with the Swiss company, this government, and that includes PAM and the PLP, they had gone into an agreement with a solar energy plant out of the Switzerland, where the sun were in the sky would heat up some solar panels. They would sell that energy to Skelec, and Skelec would sell it to us. And that company over the next 15 to 20 years is going to make, I'm told, about $250 million US. Now, if that money was here, our people would be able to benefit, like I said, from improved healthcare, jobs, building homes, and all the other things. But that money is going back to Switzerland. Now, the Labour Party is not about that. The Labour Party is about helping the masses here, empowering our people. So our policies, our progressive policies this time around, if you look at our manifesto, our progressive policies, as opposed to what they're advocating for, sending money out of the economy while our people continue to suffer. We have 8 solid candidates, diverse candidates, and our competent comrade leader who is caring and compassionate. That sets us apart completely from the other 2 parties.
So I think what you're saying is there's a difference in focus.
Yes.
And also...
And the focus is the people.
People.
And not foreigners.
Right.
Yes.
And also that you believe that the Labour Party has the best team of candidates being put forward in this election.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like that's what each of the parties should feel like, that they are putting their best forward, hopefully.
No, how can you say that when our people continue to suffer and these 2 parties contracted to send $850 million US over the next 15 years out of our economy? You know what that could do if that money was circulating here? We would have a lot of people moving off of the social programs and being able to be independent. We'd have a lot of people being able to work for themselves. We could fix the hospital. We wouldn't have to fly out every time we get sick. So I'm not sure how they can distinguish themselves from us and say they are better.
Well, arguments are being made.
Solid arguments as well.
So you're saying that it would be better for us to do these things locally. Isn't there a fear that when we undertake all of these projects locally, that we lose foreign investors?
No, not at all. I mean, we can collaborate. We can create companies here to work so that even our people can be shareholders in the companies here instead of sending all the money overseas. But we can collaborate with the experts if we don't have them on island. If we have them here, we can use them and work with the persons from overseas. But how can we allow a foreign company to sell our passports, make the money off of it, and take the money out of the economy? I am not at all against foreign investors. Like I told you, we want foreign investors to come, but we can't have them taking all of our money out of our economy while our people continue to suffer.
Understood. I think that a lot of times when we're talking about money that could be used here, we sometimes act as if this money is somewhere sitting, and then we have to and we're taking this money and sending it somewhere. And so I personally have issues with that type of rhetoric, not necessarily saying that I don't understand the point that's being made, but the way sometimes it's phrased, I think excludes some of the nuances that exist. So when we start talking about foreign investment, foreign partnership, how that works, I don't believe that you're saying that that is not necessary.
Not
what you're
at
saying
all.
Is, what you're saying is the way that it's set up
Yes.
needs to be in a way that puts more of the favor in
our people.
Our people.
My
Okay.
child could be a shareholder in a company here that works with an overseas company. All the monies should not be sent to China and Switzerland. And the prison doesn't even cost what is going to be sent overseas. So the prison costs a certain amount, and a huge, a substantial amount is going to be sent overseas. Why can't some of that stay here to build our country? And to me, that is major, especially after a pandemic where people are out of jobs, people want housing, we need our roads fixed, health is deteriorating, schools are falling apart. Irish Town School, Bastia High, it's tragic, to say the least.
I totally agree with you in terms of the need for a lot of these, especially infrastructure projects, to really get on the way. When we start talking about, we complain about those same institutions that you talk about, the hospitals, schools,
yes,
roads, etc. We start, people talking about bridge between St. Kitts-Nevis, all these things. My thing has been, like you're saying, the fact that a lot of this can be structured in a way where our people are invested in the successes of these projects.
Yes.
So what do you think has kind of caused us to not be doing that? Not only the last 7, 10, 15 years, but why hasn't that been the way that we have done things traditionally here?
I'm not sure. Within the last 7 years, for me, it has been the focus.
Okay.
When politicians take those decisions, it's because something is in it for them. So they agree and contract to send the profits overseas because something is in it for them. What about us? And to me, that is where they have failed. That is where we can set them apart from us. Things were definitely better on the Labour, if I can say that. Things were better on the Labour. We had money circulating in the economy. I mean, we could have done some things differently and better. I am not even going to, lie about that. But nothing has happened in this country within the last 7 years. We built some roads, which is what we're supposed to do. We did some stoplights. And all the other projects that were finished were what was started on the Labour. But nothing new. I stand to be corrected. But I cannot recall anything new other than the stoplights, the fixing of some roads here one time, there another time. And I can't see any real capital projects that would put money in our people's pockets. So then how do you take a decision to embark on capital projects that would send the monies overseas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some people may say that some of the things that you're speaking about did happen under the previous administration before the unity government. How do we as people put trust in the Labour Party, hoping that these things won't continue? What can you tell us to reassure us that certain things that happened before that a lot of us would not agree with would not happen again?
So we need to be more transparent. We are going to be running a government, not your own private business. We are accountable to the people. We are elected as members of parliament to serve the people, and we are accountable to them. So we absolutely need to be more transparent. That's one, so that people can stay up to date with what's happening. They can go and ask a question and find out. We need to be, putting more things out there. And how do we prevent those things from happening outside of transparency? You said some of the things that happened within the last 7 years.
Well, I was speaking before the past 7 years because you did mention that the Labour Party was not perfect. So how do we ensure that those things that happened... and
we would never attain perfection. No party will. But once we stay focused on the philosophy of the party, which is the empowerment of the people, we will not go astray. Once we start thinking about ourselves, we would have an issue. But if we stay focused on what we stand for as a party, which is the empowerment of our people and nation building, we should not have any real issues. We may drop the ball here and there. Of course, like I said, we will never attain perfection. But focusing on the people would ensure that things like, oh, you send this overseas so you could get a cut. I'm not saying that has happened. But clearly something has to be happening why you would take a decision to just send all the profits overseas or a major part of the profits overseas.
Okay.
Understood. Well, Marsha, I think that we are squarely, like I was saying, right at the end, hopefully, of this.
Hopefully.
The fourth quarter.
Yeah, when the fourth. Marsha, oh my God, you don't understand.
You don't understand
I think, I feel it for the candidates like yourself, for
Can you see it on my face?
No, you look lovely, and
thank you, Azem.
I
Thank
don't know
you.
just what you're speaking about.
I'm sleep deprived,
Well,
but
you're
it's for a
hiding
good
it well.
cause. It's for a good cause.
Yeah, but I think we are at a place where we were. I don't think most of the population was clamoring, agitating for an election at this point. And I think that we have to recognize that sometimes people are starting to believe that we are at the mercy of the political class, and whatever happens, not only in parliament, but in cabinet, but just what happens in whatever meetings and whatever, like we aren't not only involved, but not the beneficiary of. And I think that is what you're talking about in terms of sticking to the philosophy, remaining true to empowering of the masses. And that is what you are interacting with when you say sometimes people are disenchanted with the politicians and the political class. Hopefully, the politicians that come out of these times, right, with the younger politicians, the ones who are new, could bring some of that
Change.
understanding to the political class, and then foster the change that we're looking to see. Because the question that Jade asks, I think, is one that a lot of people are asking, which is what you hear in comments like, we just need a whole new crop of politician, man. We just need a new party. We need and people really, at the end of the day, start feeling like it is not us against them, but the parties against the parties, right?
My thought is, because we've had some good politicians, I won't lie.
Right.
In my short span here on earth, I've encountered some good politicians. To me, the introduction of term limits is what might help, because when you stay in office sometimes for too long, you lose focus. And you tend to believe the country belongs to you.
So let me ask you a question now. You're speaking about term limits for Prime Minister specifically?
Yes.
Or even for representation?
And representation, but that requires it requires electoral reform, which is what we are big on as well. That's in our manifesto that would be launched later today, and constitutional reform. So my thing is, and maybe I haven't thought about it long enough, but politicians should not be there forever and amen.
We don't have a monarchy, right?
Yeah, no, and and even where there's a monarchy, the monarch doesn't make, those decisions. Those are made by the executive. So I think the introduction of term limits, whether it's for the Prime Minister or representatives, then that might help. It might help in terms of focus and all of that, and ensuring that you get what you need to be done, whether it's in 1 or 2 terms like in the US.
Well, I have another question, and it comes out of the fact that you are a lawyer, and so a lot of the laws in St. Kitts, a lot of people could say are very archaic, do not fit into the time that we are in. Is there any plans to try and reform some of these laws, look at them and see
or even abandon them? Yes.
Even better.
Yes, definitely. There are plans to, and even without us making the changes, the court has embarked on and sometimes created legal positions without parliamentarians going into parliament and creating it. So there's been a shift. Even with marijuana, you see the move to legalize it for so far for religious purposes. The court has taken that step, and the court should not have had to do that. And what the court did was give the decision and give the directive that, Parliament needs to take the step. Of course, it has not been taken. So there's just a decision from the court, and the court cannot dictate for Parliament, of course. But we need to start thinking, as you said, Jade, that we're living in a different time now, and our laws need to reflect that. So there's the change. I've seen it as a lawyer where we need to make it in a lot of the old legislation, for example, even to go out and protest or, go out on the streets. Back in slavery, the plantation owners had this piece of law where they would keep the slaves on the plantation, but if there's the offense of failing to move and keep on moving. So when we're out on the road, and I don't even want to call it protesting, but if you're out and you're grieved and demonstrating, they can just lock you up for failure to move and keep on moving in this day and age. So we still have a lot of archaic laws on our books. Whether we choose to enforce them or not, a lot of times we don't choose to, but when it suits us,
and that is the problem, right?
Because it's still there. When it suits us, then we try to enforce them.
A lot of times we focus on the letter of the law, not the spirit.
And we have a lot of controversial judges who have to look at those laws in comparison to our constitutional rights, because our Constitution is our supreme law, and any piece of legislation that comes into contravention with your rights has to be struck down. So the court has been, a lot of judges have, for example, with the Rastafarians, if that's their religious belief, the law that prevents them from practicing it should be struck down. Yeah. So laws are made to control people sometimes, and especially back during slavery. Not so much these days. We focus on CBI, all them other things. But back then, during slavery, the laws were there to control the masses, and we still have them, on the books.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that there's a recognition that there has to be some shift and some changes to our legal system for sure. But Marsha, I mean, time is fast spent. I can't believe
already.
We've been talking for almost an hour so far. But I would love you to just, as we wrap up, say any last words to our viewers and our listeners about one, why Marsha Henderson in the upcoming election, and of course why the Kitts-Nevis Labour Party.
Okay, so as in first, and Jade, thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure being here, even though I'm not a morning person and I struggled, but it was a pleasure being here.
The funny thing is, just this week I was like, I need to get Marsha on the show,
Yeah.
And then somebody messaged me. I was like, Marsha said she want to come on the show. I was like, oh, perfect.
So thanks for having me. It's my second time, I think, with you guys, and as always, you've made the experience, so, I wasn't traumatized or anything.
No, we don't. That's not our brand here.
And
we don't
sensible questions. And I'm happy that, you guys were able to accommodate me today. But on August the 5th, the people of Central Bastia have a decision to make. It's like I say, it's a critical juncture in our federation here. And I want to solicit the support. I want to ask the people of Central Bastia to vote for me. The good people of Central Bastia deserve good representation. Decent people deserve decent representation. Good people deserve good representation, and that has been lacking for the past few years here in Central Bastia, and I will bring that to the table with the policies that we have in mind, of course, coming out of the canvassing. In relation to the issues that affect our people most, we've formulated a plan, that includes, alleviating the problems for the people of Central Bastia. There are 2 other candidates. I'm not here to talk about them, but the current representative has been missing in action. In fact, they have admitted that they have failed. So I don't even need to say it for them. And then there's a new candidate. He runs on the PLP ticket. And we have gone through all morning what the coalition involving PLP and PAM, what plans they had, what agreements they went into that were not in the best interest of our people on a whole. And a vote for him is a vote for PLP. And so I want to encourage those of you listening to support all of the 8 candidates for the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party. From Constituency 1 to 8, we are led by our caring and competent comrade leader, Dr. Terence Drew, who would provide transformational leadership for this federation. So I'm soliciting your support in Central Bastia. I love you. I am looking forward to being your representative and making things happen for the people of Central Bastia.
Well, Marsha, you have been a real pleasure to talk to this morning, and we appreciate you also
Thank you,
to
Azam.
come and hang out with us right here on Island Tea.
Thank you.
I'm sure the people enjoy the bushy this morning, I think.
Man, of course.
Yeah, big up,
In coffee.
no, big up all the sippers. Big up all
It's
the
bush
sippers.
tea.
Yeah, last week I was in Nevis, and a man came to me and was like, Mr. You got any bush in your bag? I was like, always.
I'm just going to say, I'm sure you did.
But yeah, big up to the listeners. I'm gonna tell you on the live right now, your central people on the live going crazy right now.
I wish I could see my.
Yeah, man.
Big up to the people of Central Bastia. You always show up and show out for me. I am overwhelmed by the support, Azem and Jade. Completely overwhelmed by the support and the thought the people have that, I'm going to be their next representative. It's exciting. They continue to show me love and support, and I am so grateful for the people and honored to be, chosen as their candidate and next representative.
Well, Marsha, they seem to be loving you right back.
Boy, you don't want to see the flags, the red flags on the line.
They always show up, always.
Yeah.
I could count on them, and I know I will be able to count on them on the 5th of August, 2022 as well, to show up and show out.
Yeah. Well, it has been a pleasure, like I've been saying, and we really want to wish you all the best in your.
Thank you very much.
In your campaign as it kind of winds down, or maybe ramps up to ramps up to the
Yes.
eventual election, and even after the election, no matter the results, we'd love to have you back to talk some more.
Of course.
And who knows, we might be calling you the honorable.
You will be.
Okay.
Okay.
You will be.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Marsha. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Azem, and thank you, Jade, and have yourselves both a fantastic one today.
You as well.
Thank you.
Go try and get some sleep. I don't know how you're going to find it.
August,
That is a foreign concept.
August 8th, maybe August 6th.
We were up since 6 o'clock,
Oh.
our management team,
Oh.
since 6 o'clock meeting. So it's all for a good cause. Like I said, it's all for a good cause. And so I'll get some sleep.
Eventually.
Yes.
Eventually.
All right. And Jade, things are happening, Jade.